Hello everyone, welcome to Voting to an Warning. I'm Jessica. Welcome back for week 2 of our series about voting. Last week we talked a lot about why vote. We talked a little bit about kind of the history of voting, and then we really wanted to focus on the individual why. So looking at your why, and hopefully between then and now you've thought about maybe your top 3 whys, why voting is important to you in this upcoming election, and the things that really do move you to focus on when it comes to that time period. So for this week, we're going to focus on the how. So really getting into how do we actually vote, and what are the mechanisms to do so. So in doing a little bit of research about this, I really kind of dug into finding out a little bit more about the history of voting. And so here's the biggest piece of information that I found, and I'm a little bit obsessed with this fact because apparently back in the day, the voting day was a big party for all intents and purposes. So election day was a big deal, and people got together and they ate together and they drank together and they really kind of celebrated the day. And so my thought process to all of you is, why did we ever stop doing that? I think over time, election day has become just another Tuesday in some people's lives. And so my thought process is, why don't we bring that back? So in one of our first do's of the day, let's talk about bringing back, a celebratory nature around election day, where we gather together as much as social distancing will allow, and maybe grab a drink, get a meal, grab some coffee, go for a walk, whatever you're into, but use it as a day to kind of celebrate not only doing something great for yourself, for America, for the people that you care about, but also what a great day to celebrate just what a cool right that we have to be able to vote. But it's a great excuse to also celebrate with your friends and kind of make it a day. I also gonna throw it out there, if you know any restaurant owners or bar owners, maybe they could create a promotion for that day where if you wear the I just voted sticker, or you bring in your receipt, your email receipt that says that you voted, maybe you get a free cocktail or a free appetizer or some coffee or ice cream, whatever you're into. But that could be cool. So I'm throwing it out there. You've got 15 weeks until the election, November 3rd, 2020, in case I didn't mention it already. So keep that in mind. Maybe it's something cool we can start to put into motion again. And let's enjoy. Let November 3rd become a day that people get pretty excited about. So last week, in talking about the how, we talked about, even last week, about registering to vote. So I want to bring that topic back to the table, because registering to vote is the first step in making sure that you are able to vote, right? So if you take some time, get registered to vote, it'll give you the ability to decide that day. You could wait till the end of the day if you really are kind of in flux about what you want to do. Take the opportunity to get registered. I looked online. The time frame it takes to get registered is less than 2 minutes. So I know you're busy, but you've got 2 minutes, I think, to dedicate to this process. So take a minute, get registered, make sure you're on that site. I mentioned the site rockthevote.org because I do think it's a great site. And it's got a ton of information, but there are tons of sites out there, even your local voting pages, based on your state and whatnot. So feel free to take a look at those too. But that's one of the ones I'm recommending is rockthevote.org, because I've looked on it a bunch of times, and they really do have information based on whatever you might need from a state-by-state basis. So keep that in mind. So now that you've registered to vote, let's talk about what it means to actually go and vote. So for those of you that have never voted before, you are entering into this new phase of your life in a very interesting time. So I can't tell you that the things that I'm going to tell you about voting won't change. This is probably a moving target between now and November by way of the pandemic. So we'll keep our eyes peeled about what happens along those lines. But I can tell you how it stands today in terms of what the mechanisms are to be able to vote. So there are going to be, in some instances, 3 ways to actually vote. The first one will be physically going to your polling location. So I will mention again, take a look online to find out where your polling location is if you've never gone. I'm very lucky. My polling location is at a church about 3 or 4 blocks away, so it's pretty easy for me to get there without much concern for my ability to get there. I don't know that it's that easy everywhere, so do a check, maybe take a look if you get a chance to in the near future, figure out where your polling location is, and then in future weeks we're going to talk about overcoming obstacles. So depending on how far away your polling place is or how challenging it might be for you to get there, we can talk about hopefully some resolutions to maybe overcome that. But keep in mind, if you'll figure out where your polling place is, chances are it may be kind of in your neck of the woods somewhere. That's the hope. Probably in a municipal building or a school or a church. Those types of buildings usually happen. So in going to the polling place, typically you'll go in, your name will be on the list as a registered voter. You'll go through the process of checking in, and then you'll be kind of motioned over to one of the polling locations, right? So they are closed off. This is a no cheating, no looking at other people's papers sort of situation. You get to make your decisions in isolation because only you will ever know unless you tell somebody how you voted. So in Pennsylvania, at least where I am, we use basically Scantron sheets like we used to in high school. So you fill in the bubbles, they run it through a machine. In other locations, I've seen that they have giant books that they give out, or I've seen voting machines. Every state is a little bit different, so you probably want to get familiarized with your polling place. But chances are, if you're watching this video, chances are you kind of have some background knowledge about utilizing different elements of technology. Plus, there are assistants at the polling place that are usually very nice, very helpful, and very knowledgeable. When I voted in the primary here in Pennsylvania, they were also covered in personal protective equipment, which was also very good. So keep that in mind. If you haven't voted before, I realize it could feel intimidating, but believe me, we've encountered great people that work the polling places that would be more than willing to help. Plus, you can always go out to your local website and see the ballot ahead of time so you can get a little bit more familiarized with it before you go there, okay? So that's going. So the second way that you may be able to vote this year in the general election is by mail-in ballot. So I did take a look and see what the rules and regulations are, and I took a look at a ton of states. I will mention they are all different. So please check your particular state and make sure that that's an option for you. I did see that there are, I think it's somewhere between 10 and 20 states where it may not be an option coming up. So just take a look at that. In the event that it is, you would request via an online form a mail-in ballot and use that. Now, my story is that I got the recommendation from a friend of mine to go through the process of filling out the form and getting the online ballot. I got it, but I must have sat on that, the online form a little bit too long because it came the day before the primary. So I freaked out a little bit, ended up going to the polling place anyway. Unfortunately, when you decide to do the mail-in ballot, they are anticipating that that's how you are going to vote. So my name wasn't on the list, but so I got pulled aside. They had to call the voting judge to make sure that they were anticipating my ballot. I went through the process of voting that way, and everything got confirmed, and it went through the process correctly. Unfortunately, I spent more time at the polling place than I would have had I just read the instructions, because really there were options for me to just go drop the ballot off at the voting office versus going through all the process that I did. So that cautionary tale is really to just let you know that you probably want to make the decision about whether or not you want to do a mail-in ballot earlier rather than later, so that maybe you can spend some time with the ballot, maybe understand it. If you do have questions or maybe don't understand exactly what you're doing, It'll give you the option to make some phone calls and ask some questions. But probably if you just you make sure you fill out that form early enough, it's going to be a really simple process to send in. So that's the second option. The third option is absentee voting. So this is really about if you believe you will not be near your permanent residence where you've registered to vote on November 3rd, right? So that could be college students, that could be if you travel for work, if you travel for pleasure, if you plan on being out of town, if you spend your winters somewhere other than where your permanent residence is. Absentee ballots are an option, right? So you do need to, in some states, require you to put a request in with a reason. So you want to take a look at that. For college students, you actually have two options. One is to register to vote where you go to college. So if your school is not near where your permanent residence is, so your family's home, wherever you grew up, you can register to vote at school, and then you will vote in that state, okay, wherever that might be. You can also choose to vote and register to vote where your permanent residence is, and get an absentee ballot and vote that way, okay? So those are really your three options when it comes to elections this year, as of today. So we will figure out together what this means as we continue going forward, but it's something to keep in mind. So I'm Jessica. This has been Voting 2-Minute Warning. I did want to mention a couple of dates that are upcoming that we want to keep our eyes out for in terms of primaries. So we've got July registration deadlines to vote in primaries. July 15th is Louisiana. July 19th is Alaska. July 20th is Michigan, Alabama, and Florida. July 21st, Minnesota. July 22nd, Wisconsin. July 27th, Washington. And July 31st, Idaho and Oklahoma. So take the 2 minutes, get registered to vote, plan a really cool, fun hangout with your friends, family, coworkers, whoever will be allowed to hang out with on election day. And let's blow this out and have an unprecedented number of folks vote this year. This has been Jessica. I'll see you next week. Thanks.